They called it mentorship, but what if it was something far darker, hiding in plain sight?
Like with that, bro, this ain't crazy talk. I know it happened, bro.
Well then,
I know.
so what, you want to tell it or not? Because either you're going to hold it in and let it destroy your life, or you just going to tell it now, or you don't even have to tell it. You want other people to tell it, but see, people are not going to sit there and say stuff for you, Bryshere, and then you get
Around you, he been around you, so he know everything. He seen it.
He tried to what's amazing is that Bilal going around here, Tasha K and TMZ talking about.
Just hit me up. She just hit me up.
I know. Do you want me? What kind of mother would do that to her son? Turn him into a prostitute so you could pretend to be something more than what you are, which is nothing more than a filly. You're a big ol' and they're making your son out to be. And when the truth is, she wasn't nothing but a drug dealer's.
Is that being a celebrity sometimes comes with, like, everybody wants to be successful in a celebrity and stuff like that, but it comes with, you know, sometimes, and, you know, that's the only thing that I hate about it.
It starts exactly where every scandal pretends not to begin. Whispers, denials, and a mother suddenly speaking, but not really owning anything. Bryshere Gray, once the golden boy of television, the rising star everyone swore would dominate Hollywood, is now at the center of something that feels less like a fall from grace and more like a carefully buried story clawing its way back to the surface. Because how does someone go from primetime fame to chaos, controversy, and complete collapse? And then comes Andrea, his own mother, stepping forward, not to confess, not to explain, but to redirect, to soften the edges, to blur the lines. But the internet? Oh, the internet is not buying it. Not this time. Because what people are seeing right now doesn't look like a simple downfall. It looks like damage. Deep, irreversible damage. Bryshere, the same young man who once lit up screens, is now trending for reasons nobody wants to fully say out loud. And while some try to laugh it off, others are asking a much darker question. What actually happened behind closed doors during that so-called mentorship? And just when things couldn't feel more unsettling, police reports surface. A call. A claim. A mother saying her son tried to end his life. But Bryshere, he flips the script entirely, accusing her of fabrication, manipulation, even mental instability. So now the question isn't just what happened to him, it's who's telling the truth and who's protecting something far bigger.
Made a lie and said that I tried to hurt myself.
Because here's where the story stops being uncomfortable and starts becoming terrifying. Bryshere wasn't the only one. Let that sink in. Allegedly, there were others, young men. Quiet names, forgotten faces, all handed over under the same shiny label, mentorship. But mentorship for what exactly? Because the rumors don't describe guidance. They don't describe growth. They describe something else entirely, something exploitative, something controlling, something that leaves people asking, were these young men being built up or broken down? And Bryshere, according to these claims, he didn't just walk away changed. He walked away used, discarded, rewired into something unrecognizable. And when he tried to rebuild, tried to stand back up, the doors didn't just close. They slammed shut. And here's the part that makes everything feel even more eerie. Somebody already said all of this. Long before the chaos, long before the headlines, long before Bryshere's name became synonymous with downfall instead of success. Jaguar Wright. She spoke, she warned, she pointed fingers at powerful names, names people didn't want to question, names that seemed untouchable. And what happened? She was dismissed, mocked, ignored, until suddenly everything she said didn't sound so crazy anymore. And now people are scrambling, replaying her words, connecting dots that were always there, just hidden behind fame, influence, and silence. Because what if the signs were never subtle? What if people just chose not to see them? But then, the story takes an even darker turn. Because now, it's not just outsiders being accused. It's his own inner circle, his manager, his mother, allegedly working together, allegedly aware, allegedly playing roles in something that sounds less like a career move and more like a setup. And this is where the betrayal hits differently. Because strangers exploiting you is one thing, but the people who are supposed to protect you, that's something else entirely. Suddenly, moments that once seemed normal start looking suspicious. Decisions start feeling calculated. And people begin asking, was this planned? And then comes the detail that makes everything feel almost too disturbing to process. Regret. Andrea allegedly reaching out, asking how to fix it, asking how to save save her son. But then something changes, because according to the claims, that regret didn't last. Money entered the picture, and just like that, concern allegedly turned into silence again. Because if true, and that word matters here, if true, it paints a picture that's almost impossible to ignore. A cycle. Give, take, regret, repeat. And Bryshere, caught in the middle of it all. And just when it feels like the story has already crossed every line imaginable, another layer appears. Allegations of tapes, of recordings, of moments that were never meant to be public, possibly never meant to happen at all. And suddenly, it's not just about one person anymore. It's about a network, a pattern, a system that, if even partially true, changes the entire conversation. Because now the question isn't just what happened to Bryshere, it's how many others are part of the same story, but haven't spoken yet. And then comes the twist that feels almost scripted, but isn't. A lawsuit, a massive one, $50 million. An attempt, perhaps, to fight back, to reclaim something, to expose something. But before it could even take shape, it vanished, shut down before it could breathe. And that silence, it speaks louder than anything else. Because when someone tries to tell their story and it disappears before it even begins, people start wondering who made sure of that. And why? Because Bryshere's life didn't just decline. It unraveled. Arrests, headlines, violence, addiction. Not the trajectory of someone who simply lost their way, but someone who might have been pushed off course entirely. Someone who went from promise to chaos in a way that feels too extreme to be coincidence. And when those mugshots surfaced, those hollow eyes, that unrecognizable version of someone once so full of life, people didn't just see a fall from grace. They saw damage, the kind that doesn't come from nowhere. And just when it seemed like there was nothing left to uncover, another voice enters. An insider, someone who was there, someone who claims they heard things firsthand, confessions, breakdowns, moments that never made it to cameras. And suddenly, the whispers aren't just whispers anymore. They're testimonies, and they're pointing in the same direction, again. And just when you think you've heard the worst of it, the story refuses to slow down. It doesn't settle. It doesn't soften. It sharpens. Because now, it's not just rumors floating around in dark corners of the internet. It's people stepping forward, attaching their names, their reputations, their lives to what they're saying. And this is where everything starts to feel dangerously real. Because when someone makes accusations this serious, this explosive, this career-ending, there are usually two paths: silence or consequences. But instead of quiet denials or carefully worded statements, what we're hearing about is something far more unsettling. Threats, legal battles, a situation that escalated so intensely that it spilled out of the shadows and into courtrooms. And people are noticing something strange here, because if these claims were completely baseless, why respond with force instead of facts? Why not shut it down cleanly, publicly, instantly? Instead, what we're seeing is a prolonged fight, one that hasn't gone away, one that, according to what's being said, is actually leaning in favor of the person making the allegations. And that makes people pause, because truth has a funny way of surfacing in the places where people try hardest to bury it. But then comes the moment that changes everything. Bryshere himself. After all the whispers, all the claims, all the voices speaking for him, he finally steps into the light, even if only briefly. And what does he do? He doesn't deny it. Not directly, not clearly, not in a way that shuts anything down. And sometimes silence says more than any confession ever could. Because if everything being said was completely fabricated, wouldn't this be the moment to say it loud? Wouldn't this be the moment to reclaim the narrative? But instead, what people saw felt like confirmation without words, like someone carrying a weight they're not ready to fully unpack. And that hesitation, it's haunting, because it suggests that whatever happened isn't something that can be easily explained away. And now, the public is doing what it always does when things stop making sense. They're connecting dots. They're revisiting old interviews, old clips, old moments that once felt harmless, but now feel loaded with meaning. And the comments? They're not holding back. People are looking at Bryshere and saying what many were afraid to say before, that his life doesn't look like a random collapse. It looks like something was taken from him, something fundamental. And then there are those who are widening the lens even further, questioning not just individuals, but the entire system surrounding them. Because how many stories like this have we seen before? Young talent rises fast, gets pulled into powerful circles, and then suddenly, everything changes. The energy shifts, the career stalls, the person becomes unrecognizable, and the explanation? Always vague, always incomplete. Coincidence or pattern? Because patterns don't lie. And the deeper people dig, the more they start to believe this isn't just about one actor, one family, one situation. It's about an industry, a machine, one that builds stars just as easily as it breaks them. And Bryshere? He might just be one of the few whose story is slipping through the cracks. One of the few where the damage became too visible to hide. But here's the part that lingers, the part that refuses to settle no matter how much time passes: his mother. Because through all of this, the allegations, the breakdowns, the chaos, she remains at the center of the conversation. Not as a victim, not as someone unaware, but as someone people are questioning more than ever before. Because when a parent is accused of playing a role in something like this, it changes everything. It reframes the entire story. It turns what could have been seen as external exploitation into something much closer, much more personal. And people can't stop asking the same question. If even a fraction of this is true, how does a mother live with that? But then again, maybe that's why the narrative keeps shifting, why the focus keeps moving, why every time things get too close to something solid, something undeniable, the story gets pulled in another direction. Because confusion is powerful. It keeps people divided. It keeps the truth just out of reach. And right now, that's exactly where this story lives. In that uncomfortable space between what's been said and what hasn't been proven, between what people believe and what they're afraid to confirm. Because the names involved, they're not small, they're not easy to question. They're the kind of names that come with influence, power, and the ability to control narratives before they ever fully form. And that's what makes this whole situation feel so heavy, so unresolved. Because even with everything that's come out, everything that's been claimed, everything that's been hinted at, there are still gaps, still silences, still pieces of the story that feel like they're being deliberately held back. And maybe that's the most unsettling part of all. Not what we know, but what we don't. Because if what's already surfaced is this disturbing, what could still be hidden? And more importantly, who else is part of this story but hasn't spoken yet? Because stories like this don't exist in isolation. They ripple. They connect. They expose things people were never meant to see. And whether the full truth ever comes out or not, one thing is already clear. Bryshere Gray's story doesn't feel finished. It feels paused, like something is still waiting to be revealed. And until that moment comes, the questions won't stop. The speculation won't fade. And the truth, whatever it is, will keep sitting just beneath the surface, waiting.